for this presentation with Father Lazar Stanislaus on intercultural living, explorations in missiology. And Patrizia is coming towards me.
Welcome everybody. Just some technical directions for the translation. Algunas indicaciones para la traducción. Vamos a hablar la mayoría del tiempo.
Most of the time we'll be speaking in English. So for those who do not understand English, there is a button to the right or to the left. You can regulate the volume and choose the channel. The channel for Spanish is channel 3. Is that right, Florence? Is it channel 3? Yes.
Also for the English people, when we have questions in English, in Spanish, you need, in case the translation, so you have to change the channel. But the channel will be always the third, 3. For both languages, because we have just one translator. Am I clear? Can you? Can you all hear the translation?
Can you hear the translation into English? Can you raise your hand if you can hear the English translation, please?
So when you want to ask questions, just press on the bottom in front of you later on. You have to take into consideration that we also have people following the talk online. So you have to speak slowly in English or in Spanish, because we will also give the opportunity to people online to ask questions. So speak slowly and say the languages before, so the translator can translate. Okay, thank you.
Once more, good morning. Welcome to all of you who are here at UISG with us and who are here via webinar. Usually, Sister Bernadette Reese is sitting in this seat, but she is unable to be here today. So I have the privilege of being the moderator of today's session. My name is Sister Patricia, more commonly Pat McMahon. I am a Franciscan, and like many sisters in Rome, a member of the General Council, living here in Rome for a period of time. So I want to welcome all of you. I only met Father this morning, but it has been a privilege to talk with him. Today's presentation is being live streamed and will appear later via YouTube. Therefore, it's possible for your image to appear. If there is anyone here who would rather not have her image streamed or his image streamed over the internet, please raise your hand. Since today's presentation is being live streamed, and because all of us here come from various parts of the world, let's see where we are from in order to get a sense of how universal a group we are this morning. We have sisters and brothers here from or missioned in Austria, Brazil, Ireland, Israel, Italy, Malta, Korea, South Africa, Swaziland, the UK, and the US, Guatemala, Venezuela, Spain, Canada, Switzerland, Bolivia, Colombia, Vietnam, Nigeria, Philippines, Scotland, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Germany, Indonesia, Congo, Australia, India, Japan, Cameroon, Zambia, Singapore, Honduras, Ethiopia, New Zealand, Belgium, Dominican Republic, Chile, Argentina, France. Quite a good representation for a gathering on intercultural living. Our presenter today is Father Lazar Stanislaus of the SVD. He completed his doctorate in Missiology at the Pontifical Gregorian University, Rome. He was the director of Isvani Kendra Institute of Missiology and Communications in Pune. He served one term as the president of the International Association of Catholic Missiologists. He was the provincial superior of the India Mumbai province. And in addition to contributing many articles to missiology, adult theology, and related subjects. At present, he is the Generalate Mission Secretary of the Society of the Divine Word. So please join me in giving Father Lazar Stanislaus a very warm welcome.
So good morning to all of you. So welcome for all the persons, those who are here in the hall, as well as those who are outside in the web links. So we begin this particular session on intercultural living. Well, this is a very large topic. I have given 1 hour to present. So let me try to present just to the important aspects of interculturality. You are all experienced people. Therefore, I will only highlight some of the main points. Afterwards, we can have some interactions. Now, interculturality. Now, when we are talking about interculturality, we are talking about cultures mainly. So culture has been defined many different ways, as we know. It is said, if you call 500 sociologists, they will define culture in 500 ways. So it is so vast and very, very, very apt. But the normal understanding is the way of life of an entire society. So that's how normally it is defined. But then you can have very many definitions. But culture is dynamic. It is always evolving. It is never static. Therefore, the interculturality plays a very vital role today because the culture in which we are living, where we are working as missionaries, it is always dynamic and evolving. Especially in the context of globalization or immigration, urbanization, we come in contact with various cultures. Therefore, there is an interaction with various cultures are taking place. Now, in that aspect, we are trying to understand interculturality. So it is beyond the monoculture, multiculture, even cross-culture. Therefore, it is beyond cross-cultural to mutual, multi-dimensional exchange and enrichment. So when we are living in a culture where we interact with very different people, then there is a mutuality. But in the mutuality, there is an interchange and there is an there is an exchange and enrichment. So therefore, a mutual exchange between cultures that can lead to the transformation and enrichment of all those who involved. So here, when we live, especially as a community or in a place as a mission, we are trying to see that there is a transformation takes place. But transformation is not taking place only with me or with others, but with everyone involved in that particular process. So that is the richness of interculturality today. So when we interact, there is a transformation which takes place and also enrichment, both personal level as well as a social level. That is, in short, I can just explain about what is interculturality is about. We can always come back a little later. Now, interculturality, we can understand very different perspectives. The social science perspective. The social science perspective is mainly from ethnocentrism to ethno-relativism. Now, what is ethnocentrism? Ethnocentrism, I really rely on my own culture. I try to see everything through my cultural perspective. And then I try to judge, I try to value, I try to look at, but it is all from my own cultural perspectives, ethnocentrism. So therefore, when I look at from my cultural perspective, I value my culture more. I just don't bother about other cultures, and different other process happens. Then we have also what we call to ethno-relativism. So when you move on to ethno-relativism, then we try to see other cultures. We try to adapt, we try to accept, we try to interact, and then we try to integrate. So this is in a sociology, there is a kind of a process which is mentioned. In the next slide, I will show a little more details. There are 6 stages in the process of transformation by Milton Bennett. And then this is how it is explained. Normally, we start with a denial process. That means missing the difference. I just see my culture. I just don't see others' cultures. If I go to Kenya, I just look at everything from my cultural prism. Other cultures are just something alien. But then after some time, I try to see you polarize. So I judge. But the judgment is always from my cultural, my understanding in which I have grown. So there is a polarization. Then comes what you call minimization. The minimization is de-emphasize the difference. That means there are differences, but I just don't bother about the difference. I look at it, I say, oh, mine is best. This is the way I look at it. This is the way I am educated. So it is mostly from that particular personal aspect. So the first 3 we call cultural development continuum. The first 3 are ethnocentrism. Okay, you will get more details from this particular book, from the articles, John Kirby. So I will explain only just certain main elements here. Then we move on to the next step, that is ethno-relativism. As I told you, ethno-relativism, trying to understand other cultures. Therefore, there is acceptance that deeply comprehends the differences. So I not only just to look at the difference, I value the difference, but I try to comprehend why it is happening. What are the reasons why they behave in different way? Then I have an adaptation. I try to bridge the difference. Okay, my culture, I look at it in this way. The others look at it in another way. But how can we have the common ground? If I go to Taiwan, so in the Taiwanese culture, or it is the Chinese cultures, I try to see how I can really bridge. And the last stage is actually integration. That is a very difficult place where you will reach. But that is in sociology, that's where we try to see interculturation, what we call process, interculturality process. Okay, we can see the later some of the details. Interculturality, social science perspective, It is also from colonialism to decoloniality. That means with the colonial perspective, we always looked at, it is a superior culture, triumphalistic culture. We always try to conquer another culture. That is the mentality in which that colonial mentality was there. And just, from experience, that they did not really bother to maintain or respect or even promote the local cultures. So it is from colonial aspect. So from that particular perspective, today, interculturality will be decoloniality. That means differences are not caused in terms of values of plus and minus degrees of humanity, but we understand humanity in full sense. We understand the persons, those who are in South Africa, as persons created by God. So they are human persons. So the interculturality, you don't look at from colonial perspective. So beyond the colonial understanding of even Christian mission, now the Christian mission, we know from the triumphalistic attitude, we had only everything, then we want to impose the Roman culture or even, the colony from our own country's culture. But that is not the understanding today. We try to see the local cultures, value the local cultures, try to integrate with the local cultures. I mean, this is a process. Interculturality, again, from social perspective, it is from globalization to mutual respect and power among cultures. Well, we understand what is globalization. Globalization, there is an economic globalization, there is a political globalizations, there is a social globalizations. You understand all the spectrum of globalizations. But then from there, we try to understand the mutual respect and power among the cultures. Now, I will come back a little later. It's very, very interesting point to stress power among the cultures. You can translate the same aspect in the religious communities. Power among different cultures. Maybe we will see later. Therefore, it is not from the globalization to what you call imposing, dominance, only profit-oriented, but then more of sharing. So avoids the extremes of smothering, metaculture, or what you call fundamentalism. Now we understand the fundamentalism, they will stress the others are infidels, the others are not respected. You see the different fundamentalist attitude today. So we are not allowing that type of mentality, but it is more of interchange and respect. Therefore, Roger Schroeder, one of the SVDs, would say, social sciences highlight the potential of true interculturality for contributing to the creation of a world in which individuals, communities, and nations interact in a more appropriate and mutually enhancing fashion. So that particular mutually respect and enhancing fashion, that's where the real aspect of the interculturality lies. Now, interculturality from missiological perspective. It is from the Vatican II and beyond. It is not just Vatican II, but all the documents which came later. There is always a shift, we all know, from the old heroic paternalistic model of mission, reaching down to save and help other persons, to today, to a model of your humility and mutuality. So developing a reciprocal relationship out of respect for how God is already present in the other. So as a missionary, if I reach Indonesia, I'm trying to see how God is present there, how God is present in that particular culture, in that particular peoples. So therefore, it is a positive assessment of culture today. So every culture contains both the seeds of the word of God and elements contrary to the reign of God. So here comes the questions. Many people will be thinking, oh, I go to the other cultures, but then will I accept everything? No. As said, if you do the analysis of the culture, there are always good elements in the culture and bad elements in the culture. There is also seeds of word of God in the culture, and there are also some elements contrary to the seeds of word of God. So therefore, this is the missionaries' real challenge, to see, perceive, and understand. In the culture, wherever we are going to work, wherever we live, wherever with whom we interact, it is always try to see what is good and what is bad. Okay. True intercultural interaction is crucial for mutual enrichment and for the recognition of the continuous call of conversion for all. Well, concerning the conversion, I will come again later. But at least from the missiological point of view, there is enrichment and recognition is needed. Again, it is a shift in mission. We all know it is from the west to the rest, to mission on 6 continents. So in every place, every continent, there is a mission. In Antarctica, there are no people, otherwise it is the 7th continent. If people are there, there will be a mission there too. So, you know, we try to see in every continent, every place, every country, there is mission. The basic understanding today, all of us are aware of this. Therefore, today we see it is agentes to intergentes. We were always talking agendas. We sent our missionaries, we sent our people agentes mission. That means to the people. Yeah, it is true. It is the church understanding. We send the people to a particular country, to a particular community. But it is today of more of intergentes mission. That means agentes is included in the intergentes. We are not saying that agentes is not there. No, intergentes includes agentes, meaning we go to another place to work as a missionaries, but then when I go, it is not that I carry my experience, my richness, and my theology and my missionary zeal, and then go and work to the people, share with the people. No, it is more of intergentes. I try to respect, as I said, first the 2 things, mutuality and the respect. So therefore, I try to work with people, among people. So the mission is found in the inter. So I can understand mission. It is not because I am well trained as a big missiologist or as a missionary to another country or another community, but then I go as inter. That means when I really share and work with and among people, then I will try what is mission there. So I am not going with a very much preconceived ideas. So that is the space between what is familiar and different, between unity and diversity, and between the global and the local. So we try to understand here that inter, you know, there is global thing, there is also a local thing, but they try to bridge. Today, what do we call it is glocal, glocal. There is another book here, we call it missionary discipleship in global context. You know, global, it is not a global or local today, it is more of today, global context. Okay, so complementarity of sciences and missiological, theological perspectives and studies, which are very important today. Okay, so this is a basic understanding. From there we move on. Something very important as a missionary in our communities, especially what we understand by intercultural competence. That means as a religious communities, everyone need to be competent now in the interculturality. There are a few things here. I can't go into the details, but then the basic things I can explain. So intercultural competence is the ability to develop the targeted knowledge, skills, and attitudes that lead to visible behavior and communication that are both effective and appropriate in the intercultural interactions. Okay, what is highlighted here? There are 3 things. 1, knowledge. Second one is skills and attitudes. And these are the three aspects actually we need to really learn, grow in our own missionary life as a, if we want to really work in another place, in another community, and so forth. I'm not going to explain the whole diagram here, but I will just explain just one by one the knowledge, skills, and attitudes. So I'll come to the knowledge. First of all, we need to have the cultural self-awareness. Now, two things. One is cultural self-awareness of my own culture, and also cultural awareness of the other. So if I am not aware of my own culture, it is also difficult to understand other cultures. So we have seen sometimes missionaries, they do not know the different, they do not really have grasped the symbols, the meanings of their own cultures. So it is important to have self-awareness of my own culture, deep understanding and knowledge of the culture, context, impact, and the worldviews of my culture, and the worldviews of also what you call the other cultures. So if I go to Papua New Guinea to work, now I need to know the worldviews of the Papua New Guinea people, my own worldview and their own worldview. Then only I will be able to see how I understand myself, how I react, how do I think, then I will try to interact. Then cultural specific informations like symbols, meanings, culture, as you know, different aspects, elements, and the socio-linguistic awareness, like learning the language and so forth. Okay, these are some basic things, as I said. Now, as you see in the photo, if the lady has not learned before going to meet a particular person, then she will be embarrassed, like this, right? So before we go to a particular place, we try to see what type of persons, what type of culture, how they greet, and so forth. Okay, just to give you a simple explanation, Now you see this particular meaning. In USA and UK, if you say like this, it is okay. But then you go to Japan and then you say like this, it means money. It's not okay, it is money. In Russia, it means zero. You see? But in Brazil, it's an insult. Yeah? You cannot show this particular sign to another person. In Italy, I think it also means okay. Yeah? Am I right? So you see the same symbol, but then different cultures. Now you try to see in your own communities. You've got 4 or 5 different communities of persons of this type. So it's very difficult. How do you really communicate? Sometimes some symbolisms will be misunderstood, and sometimes we may not even communicate well. So it's important to understand my culture. And in interculturality, it is not only other cultures, so other cultures. So in your community, you have persons from USA, from Japan, from Brazil, and Russia. The challenge is I have to really know the different cultures here. The Russians, their cultural background, the Brazilians, Japanese, USA. Only then I will be able to interact well. Otherwise, I will always find difficult. I may have conversations. I may know the language. I may converse with Italian or English, but that is not the only aspect. There are many other aspects of really knowing. Now, again, it's just another example here. How can the same gestures be treated differently in different cultures? We know in Italy, Italy means che cosa? You say, what exactly do you want? What exactly do you want? But in Egypt, if you say, then it means be patient. In Egypt, it means be patient. In Greece, this is just perfect. Now, if you show like this, that means just perfect. So you see different cultures, so different symbolisms. So in that way, sometimes it is difficult. That's why interculturality is not an easy thing. It is a difficult process because to understand other cultures and different other elements dealing with the cultures. Okay, skills. The second aspect is skills. Some of the basic things, but I don't need to give all explanation to these. First of all, listening to other cultures, observing and interpreting. And also we need to interpret the other cultures. Or if I do not know, I have to ask the other persons, what is the meaning of this? Otherwise, I cannot judge from my own cultural background. Just an example. I went to Indonesia just 2 months back. I was there nearly for a month for visiting various provinces regarding mission animation. When some of the places, they gave a small kind of a towel, small thing on your neck. Then one live chicken, the really live chicken, they gave you as a part of welcome. Then one bottle of beer. One bottle of beer also they gave. They said, this is also a part of welcome. This is our custom, this is our tradition. Now, of course, as a person, as a missionary, I received, and then I have to find out what is the meaning of it. Now, I cannot make a judgment on the people based on what they gave. I am coming from a culture where you will be shocked. There are some people also from the same cultural background here. It is the beer. If you drink a beer, either you are not accepted, or it is evil, or it is not accepted practice. Even drinking beer, that means alcohol is not accepted in our culture. From the culture where I am coming from, people will not accept you. So therefore, I am coming from that particular culture. When I go to Indonesian culture, how do I enter? So I cannot really judge them. So I try to understand, interpret. Of course, they gave the interpretation. What is the meaning of it? I asked for it. So they gave the interpretation. So once I understand, okay, I try to accept. So therefore, wherever we go, we cannot really interpret the culture according to my culture. That's why I said from ethnocentric aspect, from my cultural background, but I try to see from their cultural background. Then analyze the culture, of course, then evaluate the culture. Of course, evaluation, how do we evaluate? This is the big concern, especially in the communities. How do we evaluate the culture? Which is good, which is bad? From my experience, from missiological perspective, what I can say is, it is simply the gospel value. We try to evaluate culture from the gospel values. So that is how, from the missiological perspective, I can say, people can have different perspective. Well, you can always discuss on this. Then relate with them. Okay, learn the skills and make them as life habits. Then what you call requisite attitudes, some of the attitudes. I'm just giving you the basic attitudes, okay? We may need many more attitudes. Respect, valuing other cultures, cultural diversity. Openness, of course, certainly you need openness to intercultural learning, to people from other cultures, withholding judgment. Of course, I cannot be open. If I am not open, I cannot really learn. If I am just judging the other persons, then I cannot learn from the other cultures. So therefore, the openness. And the third one, this may be interesting, curiosity and discovery. From the Western cultural background, the curiosity is very important. Even scientific value, the curiosity is important. So from curiosity, you discovery. That means you try to understand. You want to learn everything, whatever in the cultures, whatever people say, why they do, what kind of a facial expressions they have, and why they don't do, things like that. We are very curious. Maybe positively we are curious to know everything so that I may understand better. But I can tell you from my own experience as well as from interculturality, sometimes we can't be curious about everything. We cannot be curious about everything, especially in the cultural backgrounds. Sometimes we may not be able to understand the all cultural patterns. We have to give some gray areas to say, well, I don't understand. Well, I will leave it to them. It is possible. I give you an example. I went to Australia 2 or 3 years before, went to the central part of Australia, that is Alice Spring, where the Aboriginals or indigenous people are living, most of them. We have got a parish there.
So I was talking with a Paris priest, and he was telling me, as a practice, cultural practice, there is a ritual once in a year. The family goes to a forest for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes even for a month. The whole family, father, mothers, children, the whole family goes. But then he is living there nearly 5 years. So far, he has not understood why they go, what they do, what are the rituals they do, how they live. He has not understood. And because they keep it very, very secretive, it seems. They don't tell at all. They never discuss. When they come back, they never discuss what they did. Never discuss where they went. Never discuss or share with the people what they do. So if I've got too much curiosity, probably I will not know. I will not know what they have done and what kind of a cultural practices, rituals, and so forth. Therefore, I have to keep my curiosity little at the backside. So here, much more of respect and, those things should take precedence than, trying to know everything of that particular rituals. It is possible. Now I'm saying it is possible, that's why. Okay, now preparations. I come to the next one. There are 3 main elements. Now most of us are, all of us are here from missionary congregations. So we always we are interested how to prepare our personnel for intercultural living or intercultural mission. How do we prepare our persons? Just a very short explanation, because I was also involved, as it was read, in Pune, in India. In our institute, normally we were preparing nearly 50 persons per year to go outside the country and work. So from my experience also I can take, and you can also learn a lot of things from the book also and some other materials. The first is called exit learning. Exit learning is learning to live. In technical terms, it is a deparochialize. That means, first of all, learning my culture. The blindness in my culture. Sometimes I may be coming from Western cultures or Eastern cultures or African cultures, or from Kenyan culture, if you want to be so particular about it, or from Zambian cultures. But I want to know, first of all, my culture, the blindness in my culture. This is what sometimes for us very difficult to accept. I always think, now everything is good in my culture. I cannot change. No, this is how my ancestors have taught me. This is how my parents have taught me. Fine. But then culture is simply human-made. Human persons have formed the cultures. Therefore, the blindness and the submission, how I can really try to understand my culture and see maybe some of the things that I need to change, I need to learn. So it is an exit learning. Learning how to identify, describe, analyze one's own cultural roots and experiences. We are trying, before going to another country, if I am from Philippines, then I try to learn Filipino culture. If I am a Filipino, then I try to learn. If I'm an Indian, I try to identify, describe, analyze my own cultural roots, my own cultural experiences, the details of my country. As I told you in the institute where we prepare, the first week, we make sure that they really learn about India. India, different cultures, different symbols, different other meanings. Not only the cultural element connected with that, the whole environment, countries, the distances, geography, government, and local church, and so forth. So you try to learn all these things before you go to even another country. So this is the first thing to prepare, we call exit learning. Learning how to learn from ordinary members of other cultures. Somehow I try to see, I'm not learning from the books. I'm not just learning from the lectures or professors, but I try to also see how to learn also from ordinary members of the culture. My own relatives, friends, and simple people, because they much more live the culture, understand the culture. So this is the exit learning. So before I go to another country, I try to learn. Normally, when I was there, I used to say one particular phrase to the participants. First, you send your heart first to another country where you are going, then afterwards you send the suitcase. Yeah, not to send the suitcase first, then afterwards trying to find out what is it, where it is, and so forth. First, send your heart, then afterwards send your suitcase. Okay, entry learning. Entry learning is, I go to another culture. I have gone to what you call Ghana, or I have gone to Brazil, or whichever country. Then I try to leaving to learn. That means de-alienation. So if I'm an Indian, I try to alienate myself as less Indian. I cannot completely get rid of my Indianness. That's not possible, because that's how I have grown. So that is clear from the cultural point of view. But I try to less alien, and then try to be more, if I go to Brazilian, try to be a little more Brazilian, or try to more in Paraguay or Ecuador or Colombia and so forth. Learning in a country and the culture. So then I learned the culture. I learned Colombian culture. I learned Ghana culture. I learned the culture in different other countries. Then learning from ordinary members of other culture to be insiders. So therefore, classroom learning is good if we send missionaries to other cultures. At the same time, we need practical learning together with the people. That means together with the people, those who are there, I learn from those elders, tribes, the persons who are experienced and so forth. So that we call entry learning. Putting on the other culture. So once I have learned the cultures, other cultures, I try to put on now slowly the other cultures, the customs, taking on the new worldview and adjusting to the implications, including what additional changes need to be made and where further submission needs to be made. So we need to form new relations, new people, and so forth. So the entry learning in a particular country, okay? So I learn first in my own country, then I also learn in another country. What are the other aspects of learning? The other aspects of learning, which you have heard from your experience, certainly you know, learning about cultural shock and how to overcome it. It is not only knowing cultural shock, but also overcome it. But today, we can talk about cultural shock in different ways and, different things. But when we really teach the youngsters, young people, they know much more. We have to assume much more. We were teaching something to the young people. They know much more than us, I can tell you. Yeah, much more through internet, through different learning. And he had learned everything. So he went to Papua New Guinea. Then he sent me a mail saying that, Father, you told me about cultural shock in Papua New Guinea, but I am still waiting to get a cultural shock, he said. Because he had known, seen in the pictures, seen the videos and everything he had learned. So I'm just still waiting to have a cultural shock. So it is important to know, but we need to also see the young people know much better. We have to assume that particular part. But at the same time, the experience also has got elements. When you go, I give a simple example. I can't give too many examples because of the time. One of our missionaries, he went to one of the countries in Africa. He was very well taught, actually, very well taught. He was my classmate, actually. Very well taught before going outside the country, about where you are going, the church, and different, well prepared. As he went to the country, then first day, he kept the suitcase. Of course, he was very tired of the jet lag and so forth. So he started, he slept. But he slept very well. And when he woke up in the morning, he lost everything. Everything in his room was stolen, including his pant and shirt, what he wore. Everything, it means everything from the room were stolen, except his, what he call, the night clothes, what he was wearing, everything was stolen. Can you imagine what will be his shock? He learned about cultural shock and different other things. He learned about the country, missionary zeal, enthusiasm, but nothing worked. So the next day he was, you can imagine what happened. But then he slowly got over it. He worked nearly 25 years, the same country. Afterwards, he worked nearly 25 years in the same country. So sometimes it is possible that we learn many things, but the experience will teach me something else. So therefore, we need to be prepared. Begin from initial formation, these kind of learnings, and also follow up with the ongoing formation. It's not only initial formation, but even after going there, we need to learn about cultures, interculturality, and so forth. One of the key elements in all the congregations we stress is what we call accompaniment is the key element for both exit learning and entry learning. Before a person goes, there should be a person who accompanies, and also a person in the entry learning when the particular person. There are many problems we have experienced, as you also may have, because there is no accompaniment for a person who has come into a new culture. Accompaniment, from our experience, I can tell you, we need at least minimum 5 years. It's not for only 6 months, 7 months. Minimum 5 years of accompaniment. Maybe after 5 years, then we can say that particular person has really adjusted to the culture, he knows things like that. Okay, but minimum 5 years. Certainly, you need a talks, discussion, and so forth. Yeah. Intercultural community challenges. Just to come to another topic, the intercultural community and the challenges. I don't think I need to explain everything because you would know. I will just only highlight what is the main point. Okay. Intercultural community, the challenges. The challenge is mainly the prejudices and the stereotypes. This is what we see in our, in our communities, especially as a religious community. Prejudice about other cultures, the prejudice and having stereotypes. Even as a mission, when we go to another place, we work, we have got a lot of prejudices about the people with whom we are working, and also the stereotypes. And cultural domination. There is another challenge. That means it can be cultural domination in a particular community if a particular cultural background groups are economically stronger. They give all the money. They are the persons who give a lot of money for the congregations. It could be a dominant culture. We also call it as a cultural domination. It could be also numerically domination. Maybe the particular community, there are too many people in one particular culture, then it could be numeral cultural domination. Also sociologically favorable groups. Sometimes you are in a particular country, where we are in Italy. Well, there may be only one Italian or two Italians, rest are from different cultural communities of 20, 25 people. But the two Italians can dominate, I'm sorry, yeah, can dominate because it is culturally favorable because of the local cultures. So these kind of dynamics can take place. Okay, I'm just giving an example, self-victimization. So sometimes we try to say, because of low self-esteem, I have not grown in my culture. I always say, because of the others, that others dominate me. It may not be others, may not be dominating, but it is because of my own low self-esteem. So I play always what we call the victim role. It is also can be a cultural shield, using cultural differences for self-interest. You play that you don't understand us. This is a simple phrase sometimes you hear in the communities. You just don't understand us. But that may be just shielding from the cultures in the sense, don't want to be open, respect, mutual transformation, which I explained in the beginning. Also, minority discount. sometimes if I am a minority, I always play the minority card. Oh, we are minorities, that's why we are not respected. It is possible. But sometimes minority, that could be also a member from a minority group tend to enjoy privileges. I can give you a very simple example. I went to Japan three years before, went to one of the religious communities. There were nearly 30 sisters were actually Japanese community. There were only 2 of them from other communities. One from Filipino, another one is in Indian. Rest all Japanese. So these 2 cultural groups, these are since 2 persons, they were pampered more. They were given a lot of privileges. Do this, do that. No, they were really pampered. But then the pampering also does not help. I can tell you afterwards, one of them left and then returned to the country. Returned to the country. Only one survived. The sisters were wondering, I met them after some time, we really did everything to make them feel at home, but still this sister could not stay in our community. So therefore, it would be also minority discount. Sometimes I cannot enjoy too much privilege as a minority, but I try to see respect. That is more important. Majority cultural insensitivity that we know. Sometimes we are insensitive to others' cultures. Another challenge could be also what he calls the cyber world, the attitude of young people. That could be addiction of the internet, addiction of Wi-Fi. Well, often leads to a stray from your community. This is one thing today we need to really deal with young people, especially in intercultural living. How to do, what to do, how to educate and so forth. Also freedom, how to cope up with. If different cultural groups, everybody understands freedom in different background. From Western one side, one way, from Africa maybe another, from East Asian countries, you understand freedom. So therefore, when we live in a community, how do we understand freedom? So need a lot of sharing, so that is a real challenge. Okay, just to highlight a few things. Now, religious communities do not explode into group fight or violence. Certainly, we don't do that in our communities. But what can happen is actually people may resort to withdrawal into oneself. So once they feel they are not respected, they are not understood, they withdraw themselves. Then departure from the community. It is possible they don't stay in the community, they say, no, I go back to my country. Or passive aggression. Sometimes the people who are not respected in the culture or respected persons, they become aggressive. Of course, a passive aggression. That can happen. So these are some of the challenges which I can see. Certainly you have experiences more challenges. Now, some of the next step is practical ways of intercultural living. Some of the practical ways, just a few things, Intercultural living we call Adhyindra, that means living is a community, Adhyindra. Intercultural mission we call Adhyextra. That means as a community, we work with the people. In fact, I have got my earlier books were on this, intercultural living and intercultural mission. This is Adhyindra, this is Adhyextra. This is how I had foreseen earlier. But now lately, the same articles are published in this book. The same thing, but then just only few important articles are published by Orbis book. Orbis, they have published, which is available today. Now, focus on what we call common project. So therefore, the practical aspect is, let us focus on common project. Common project is not, making a road is a common project. So the whole community is involved in a common project. No, we are not talking about that type of a project. We are talking about as missionaries. Therefore, it is what is our mission statement? What is our charism? So therefore, we try to understand the charism on the mission statement in the cultural context. we have the charism. The charisms are, have to be interpreted in the cultural context. If it is not interpreted in the cultural context, then we may find difficult to work together. Just to give you a simple example. If a particular congregation, religious congregation, has a charism to work with lepers, and they go to a country, there were lepers, they were working very well, they had a big centers and so forth, but maybe after 10-15 years, there were no lepers. So what do you do with a charism? So I have to interpret the charism. What is my mission in the country at present in this cultural context and now? Therefore, try to understand what is the leprosy means, like secluded, unwanted, not respected. Maybe that similar type of people are living in that particular context today. So we need to work for these people who are unwanted, excluded, and not respected. So that is how we try to interpret the charism and then try to see the cultural context. Okay, today we can also see interculturality as a paradigm for mission. Now the interculturality, the whole thing as a paradigm for mission. In this book, there is an article by Roger Schroeder on this particular topic. Certainly we can see today. So what we see here is seek a contribution from everyone. So we try to seek contribution from everyone. The persons who are talented and not talented. The persons who have one culture and another culture. The persons who have got money and those who have no money. The person who can contribute. So we try to seek contribution from everyone. Take appropriate risks automatically. Then work with compassion and concern. This is important in a missionary context. All of us know the practical way in which we can work in a mission. Now, intercultural living, I will not be able to develop the whole thing here, but I just give you your points. Later on, you can think about it. Adi Indra, mainly we can see 5 points. First of all, in our intercultural living in a community, the spirituality. How do I see and live my spirituality together with the persons in the people in a community? Secondly, in a community, what is intercultural competence I have learned? How do I relate with the community? And the concerns, the problems, how do I address, how do I overcome, and so forth. Leadership. Interculturality has a lot to do with leadership today. It is not only the persons who are highly trained and accepted and the persons who have got very well educated is in the leadership, but interculturality has got a role today, especially in the cultural context, in your groups, in the religious congregations. Therefore, we need to see in the leadership, how do we share this particular responsibility and so forth. Finance. How do we understand finance? From the cultural perspective, we understand, but then do we accept everything in the cultural interpretation? Poverty may be understood in one culture one way, poverty may be understood in another culture another way. Okay, from the Western culture one way, maybe poverty, maybe in Africa, in Asia, some other way. Therefore, how do I see finance? So this needs a lot of discussion and sharing in the congregation, in the community, or in the congregation, I would say religious congregations. There isn't one word answer for these things. There is no one word answer. There is no immediate response, but then we need to discuss a lot. One of the things which I can stress is transparency in the finance. How do I value transparency? How do you evaluate transparency and so forth? Okay, the last one, some people put it as a first one, is a formation. Intercultural living and intercultural mission has to start with the formation itself. If our members are not formed in the initial formation regarding interculturality, intercultural living, and intercultural mission, going to another countries, another peoples, another continent, then it's very difficult to really encourage them or motivate them to live as well as to work. So it has to start from the initial formation. Initial formation, we know from many congregations, as you know, we try to give the initial formation. It is important. Every stages of formation that we need to stress on interculturality today, because that is important. Better intercultural living and how to appreciate other cultures. Well, these are some of the simple things which we know. Certainly we need to appreciate our difference. Not only know the difference, but appreciate our difference. That is a difficulty. You know, we will know the difference. We will say, okay, you live that way, I live my own way. But that is not the interculturality. It is appreciating the difference and rediscover the dignity of difference and celebrate it. So therefore, we try to see how I can celebrate the difference. This needs also a discussion, sharing, and so forth in the communities. What is the difference? How do I see? How do I celebrate it? Can I perceive it in a positive way, and so forth? Also, so the second aspect is need to rethink the way we think. Because from our attitudes, from my cultural background, I had been one particular way, thinking. As I told you, from my culture, alcohol is bad. Not only bad, alcohol is evil. That is how some of them would preach even from the pulpit, or some of them would say, or in our families. But then when you come to another culture, you try to see, if I go to, Western, here in Western countries or other cultures, I try to understand quite differently. So therefore, try to rethink the way we think. There are two ways of thinking, That is what we call dialectical approach and analogical approach. Now, what is dialectical? It is mainly from the Western countries. That means dialectical approach is, this is the right thing and wrong thing. Okay? This is what you do, this action is right. Or this action is wrong. There is no in between. No, any Westerners will say that one, if I know largely, if I can say that, yeah. You said right, yes, this is right thing to do, or this is a wrong thing to do. There is no in between. Of course, we don't accept that. Okay, this is the way the Western cultural approach in a community or in any actions. Or this is one and this is an opposite thing. Or this is accepted, this is not accepted. Clear, very clear. This is what we call dialectical approach. And many Western cultures, European cultures have that approaches. I mean, it is quite normal. But analogical approach is, it is complementary and inclusive. That means we find two things and we say, they will say, this is okay, this is also okay. Okay? Now, certain elements we can say, there's some elements. For example, this is a very, very odd example, but I can just to tell you. Suppose a child is behaving, very naughty and then uncontrollable, maybe in the Asian culture, maybe also from African culture, if I can say, they will beat, they'll give a little slap and then beat the child. And in the Western cultures, they won't do. It is something which is not acceptable. But if you discuss with the Asian cultures, they will say, no, I have got 3 children. I am the only woman here in the house. The 3 children all are making, noise. They are naughty, playing. I cannot control. What will I do? So therefore, I give little beating or slap. So they will say, it is not good, but it is acceptable. So you try to see some meaning in action, which is not right, but still they say, okay, it is acceptable. But then Western cultures, they won't accept. So therefore, we need to rethink the way we think. It all can only understand when we enter into the cultural difficulties. Suppose a woman has got 7 children in a particular culture. How she will do? How she will control all the 7 children? Or maybe she is the only woman there and the father has gone for work. So we have to think. That's why I'm saying it is the dialectical approach and analogical approach It's not in every case, but then there are examples in which we need to work on. Okay, better intercultural living. It's almost time, right? Yeah, I will just finish with 3-4 minutes. Better intercultural living, how to appreciate other cultures. One of the things I would say is share power with other cultures. I just indicated in the beginning itself. In our intercultural living, even in a community, do we really share power with the other cultures? Maybe minority culture, maybe not so developed culture, maybe not so intelligent, but then do we really share power? The experience shows we need to share power with other cultures. But then sometimes they are not ready, then we need to, what you call, train them to have the power. So we need to prepare a process. In that process, they get training. They may not raise to the level of excellence, excellent attitudes, excellent intelligence, and so forth. But then they would really get power that there makes a lot of difference of understanding and working together, especially in a community. Therefore, many communities today thinking how to share power with other cultures in the intercultural community. It's not having power only with the one culture, two cultures, but sharing power. Or give opportunities. Develop congregational culture. There is another element, I would say, for better intercultural living. Every culture, every congregation needs a culture. You know, we have to ask ourselves, what is my congregational culture? There may be a few things which are very pertinent, you know, this, I'm sure you will be able to say that, you know. Every congregation has got certain, and it is important that we preserve that culture because it is developed over traditions, it is tested, and it is actualized in many different countries. Therefore, congregational culture, some practices, some symbols, some meanings, some celebrations, and so forth, you know. So that involves kind of a family spirit. The third one is actually better intercultural living, culture and personality. Now you may be thinking, now we are talking only about culture, what about personality? It's a big topic, actually. I cannot deal here with this, you know. It's a big topic regarding, certainly we need to understand personality. The personality, they also differ in the cultures, you know. All the Germans are not in one way. All the, you know, all the Italians are not in one way. All the Ghanaians are not in one way, same personality. They have personality differences. So therefore, there is plays also vital role in intercultural community. But I can tell you, just to shorten it, various theories exist. They are connected. Understanding personality is important for interaction, but then deeper study is needed today, especially in the sciences regarding culture and personality. Models, these are technical things. I will just leave out technical things. I have got only 3 concerns to raise, then I wind up, okay? Concerns. Today, the concern in intercultural living in the mission is the longer commitment or lifelong commitment in another country or another culture. People are interested, we prepare them, we send them, then we go there, the people go there, but then there are quite a number of people today find difficult for lifelong commitment in another country. They say, no, I will work for 5 years, then I will see. If they go with that particular attitude, they will never get inserted into the culture. So therefore, the preparation of a longer commitment or lifelong commitment, every congregation has got its own parameters and rules, regulations. So I will not deal with that. But I would like to just to say lifelong commitment or longer commitment is very important, and that will give success for community living as well as mission. Generational gap. In intercultural living, there is another aspect of a concern. There are young people and other people. The elderly people are experienced people. Well, this is the thing we need to really grab with. There are positive as well as negative. Positive because to help one another, more energy because of young people, life, creativity. But negative things also, difficult to relate. The expectations are too much from the experienced people to the young people and so forth. But then we need to really grab with. More dialogue, more sharing will help. And this is my last point for the presentation today, is spirituality and interculturality. Today, we can really live in an intercultural life in our communities and work in the missions depending upon our spirituality. How I have grown, how we have grown in the spirituality. Therefore, the aspect of conversion, the aspect of what you call non-partiality, the aspect of transparency. These are all some of the important points I can just to throw it at this stage, which will help in our spirituality. That would really help our intercultural living. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Father, for sharing your wisdom and your experience. I know that you have raised a lot of questions in me, things that I find myself thinking I want to take this home to my own multicultural community and talk about it and reflect on it. And so the next part of our time together will be that we'll spend about 20 minutes where you can talk with one another at your tables. Share some of what you heard, what struck you in particular, and see if there are any questions or feedback that you would like to offer during the last part of our time together. So right now it is 10 minutes after 12. So I would ask you to share at your tables till 12:30, when I will interrupt what I'm sure will be very rich conversations, and then we'll invite you to either ask questions or give feedback to the room in general, and to Father. Okay? Good conversation. So before we talk about your questions, I have two announcements to make. Out in the lobby area where you registered, 2 of Father's books are for sale. Intercultural Living, Explanations in Missiology, and I won't try to do it. Language is not my strong suit, but yes, it is sold. These are sold by the Pauline bookstore, the Daughters of St. Paul bookstore. They will be out there and they are selling the books. So I hope that many of you will stop and purchase them. And Father has a gift for us. This is a newer book, and there are copies there, 1 copy per congregation. That is Father's free gift to us. 1 per congregation, not per person. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. So at this time, I would ask if there are any questions And Patricia assures me that she will field questions from the webinar. Was that hand raise a check or a real question?
We invite people who are following online to feel free to write their questions on the chat or ask the floor, because we are able also to give you the floor. I have a couple of questions from the Spanish group. One is, it's in English, I'm sorry. I just would like to understand, what do you mean by power or culture? Because the word power can be misunderstood. The other one is, I think it's more or less the same. It's Spanish, so I will read it in Spanish. Compartir el poder.
The other question is very similar to the first one. It says, sharing power, in what sense? And the last question of the Spanish group is, how do we know we are going the right way in the process of conversion? And I don't have questions from the English group.
One of the aspects of interculturality is mutual enrichment, I said, but it is also power sharing, sharing of power. The intercultural aspects of living as well as the growth can take place when there is a power sharing. Power in the leadership, power in the day-to-day living. It is not holding on to only one cultural power, the dominant power. That's what I mean by the power sharing. Power sharing is in the communities. It is in the community, in the intercultural living. If we have got 5, 6 cultural groups in a particular community, there is only one culture or 2 cultures have got only the power, and after some time, the others will feel always, that we are dominated. Therefore, it is a sharing of power slowly. If the persons are not really fit to hold the power, then the important aspect is you train the persons. We have to train the persons to hold the power, or give opportunities where they can also exercise to have the power. So it is more importantly sharing power. That's what I call interaction. It is not only one culture has got power, but other cultures also have got power. That's what we mean, sharing powers in the intercultural aspects, interactions. That's what I mean. It depends upon each congregations, sometimes even each communities. The way that we have grown, the way that we have upheld, the years of experience, probably it may not happen immediately. It may take years, but at least the congregations, I'm talking about religious congregations, the religious congregations should prepare, at least after a few years, that the powers are shared, not only with one particular cultural group, the power is held for a longer time. You can see some of the congregations have done very well on this. You know from my experience. But you can also see some congregations, even though they're growing older, the older members, there are new members have come, new generations have come, but still it's the same cultural group having a power for last 50 years, 60 years, So this is what I mean. And we have got a sharing power in the religious congregations. The other one is what you call, what is the right way to go? Yeah, a right way to go. Well, the right way to go is only through learning process. Or one cannot say, now this is the right way. Right way comes, first of all, from the spirituality. There are
two aspects of conversions. When you talk about spirituality conversions, I did not explain first. I said I can come later also to explain. One is what we call from our own egoism, conversion from our egoism, that my own structure, my own culture, my own background. Certainly that conversion is important. The second is conversion from our ethnocentrism. I try to convert from my own ethnocentrism to ethno-relativism, in the sense respecting, evaluating, studying, adapting, accepting, integrating, all these different elements takes place. So therefore, it is the way to go is what kind of a spirituality I have and how I will move on. The other thing which I also explained about transparency. Transparency in this particular process, transparency of what is happening to a particular culture, what is happening to a particular person, and then sharing and dialogue is very much needed. Because otherwise, we will not know exactly what happens to the persons, what happens to that particular groups, and what they are talking within their groups. So the transparency is also very much important in the process. So when I grow, then sometimes we may train the persons, but they are not ready. They are not ready. They are not ready to accept. They are not even having a courage. They are not able to take a risk. So we have to be transparent. Say, we thank you for giving us opportunities to share power, but I am not ready, or we are not ready. Our cultural group is not ready. See, there comes a transparency somehow. But that can come only through spirituality. If I am able to deep thinking and discernment, then it comes. So there are different ways in which we can also, but then I would say dialogue and sharing is very important. That is a key.
Thank you, Father. Other questions from the room? Or feedback, comment? Yes, at the very last table.
Father, English, could you comment a little further? One of your last points was about lifetime or long-term missionaries. Could you talk a little bit more about that? My sense is that sometimes that can be a detriment as opposed to a positive thing.
Each congregation has got its own ways of looking, okay? Let me explain our own congregation so that, at least from my perspective, I see, certainly you can see also from your perspective. When a person gets a final assignment, that means the place where he is supposed to go, he is appointed to a particular province. That particular province is given by the superior general, and then it is understood that he is supposed to live lifelong till his death, so to say. That is the normal expectation. That means lifelong that he is supposed. I am appointed to Kenya, or if I am appointed to Ecuador, then that is my mission country. That is my mission country. I am supposed to work lifelong. Only I can think of coming back when I retire. I can retire also in Ecuador. That choice also is given. I can also go back to my own home country for retirement. But otherwise, as long as I work as a missionary, lifelong commitment. This is what we expect from each and every member. Every member, even in his own country, in a province, particular person is appointed, he is appointed a particular province, it is supposed to be lifelong. Unless there are some reasons, you are wanted somewhere else, superiors ask you to go somewhere, okay, you are available to go and work in another province or in another country. But the normal understanding is that from the beginning, when I am appointed, I am appointed to work lifelong. Now, the problem comes here from the experiences, also from other places which I have heard. Now, when I am appointed to Ecuador, or then I simply think, now I will go and see only for 3 years, then afterwards I will decide. We say this is detrimental to mission in our point of view. This is detrimental to mission because I am not getting inserted into the culture, neither to the community. Also, I don't learn the language also properly because I keep on thinking, counting the years, when the 3rd year will come, I will return to the country. So why should I, put my whole heart and soul in the country? So this is, we don't want, and we are not training our conference that way, that we are appointed a particular missions for lifelong. And if somebody is asking to return to the country, we ask many questions. Why? What is the reason? What are the difficulties? We ask many questions. Easily we don't transfer unless there are particular reasons. Of course, there are some other reasons out there where you cannot work in your lifelong, especially health. Secondly, political reasons. Politically, if you are not able to work in a particular country, then you got a problem with the political system, then you cannot work in your country. Automatically, you have to go out. Second aspect of the health depends, the health situations. If it's a very serious health situation, you can't work in like South Sudan, Chad, or Togo, Benin, and so forth. You have to find better treatment and so forth. So there are reasons why you can be in another country, but then we expect a member to be lifelong. That is, you can have your own views. I respect your views because each congregation prepares persons in a particular way. Well, you will have your own ways of thinking, fine.
Thank you, Father. Other questions or comments?
You can also add your own experience or comments. Yeah.
Well, yes, Patricia.
I have a question. You talked about the communication, the risk of the digital world for the community, but I would like to say something about which is the intercultural challenge for the social communication, the digital world right now. Am I clear?
Yeah. There is another field actually we call intercultural communication. Yeah, it's a whole different field, intercultural communication today. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, there is one article here, one of the articles here, Intercultural Communication by Franz Eilers, a German working in Philippines. So therefore, it's a large field in which we need to understand today. Communication is important, but then we try to understand communication from the cultural point of view. And from that particular cultural point of view, we try to interact. It's a long process. And we need learning. We have to keep on learning. Because today, the system also changes. The communication process also changes today. So therefore, learning is the best thing, best thing. And then try to also see how others communicate. It's not only I am interested how I communicate, but I try to understand others communicate, especially the young people today, the postmodern world, how the young people communicate. Through their, you see how they communicate with WhatsApp, with Instagram, with Facebook, and so forth. So, but then there is also cultural element in that particular communications. So there are different things, like you can talk about cyberspace, we can talk about what you call symbols and meanings and signs of communications and so forth. So it's a large field, but then I need to learn. Wherever I go, I need to learn how people communicate one another.
Yes.
Perhaps just a little comment which struck me very much, Father. It was we should send our heart to another country before we go with our suitcase there. I think this also could be the key for our community, intercultural living, meaning that perhaps you have to start to have more interest in one another, to put our hearts on the table, that we have the courage to share. But you said to listen and dialogue. This is actually so important. Thank you for this word, to send our hearts first.
Thank you. Patricia.
Tengo otra pregunta del grupo, la última.
I have one more question from the Spanish group. And there is another comment from the English group.
I appreciate your sharing. You spoke about formation, intercultural formation. Can you speak a little more on this? Perhaps we need another meeting. Voy a leer la frase, la pregunta en español. Ahora.
I'm going to read the question in Spanish. We talk about Argentus mission. You have talked about the Intergentus mission. Could you say something about this? How can we live the Intergentus mission in a Christian country?
I think another seminar.
Well, we can talk about formation. We can talk, it has got its own topic, you know. We can talk about long. But what I would like to say is if our congregation is intercultural, if we are working in many different countries, then we need to prepare our persons in the formation itself. When I was a provincial visiting some of the minor seminaries or very young students, I used to always tell them, now consider our congregation is an international congregation. Therefore, that you are joined our congregation to become so-called world missionary. That means you are prepared to go and work anywhere in the world. That is the way that you need to prepare. If you are not prepared to go out of your own diocese, your own country, your own language, then I say, maybe you find another congregation. Probably you have joined the wrong congregation. So therefore, from the initial stage itself, we tell, we imbibe this particular knowledge, saying that ours is an international congregation, therefore there is an option to go to outside the country. Does not mean that everyone is going outside the country. Does not mean that everyone has to go outside the country. But at least as a mentality, as I grow in my formation, that I try to see interculturality. As I said, I may not go another country, but then today the world is intercultural. Even in our own country, it is intercultural. If I am working in a parish, it is intercultural. Therefore, I cannot say that it is not intercultural because of, as you know, from immigration, globalization, urbanization, and so forth, it is intercultural. It is very few places we will try to see only culture is very monoculture place. So therefore, if I am from a particular country, even in my own country, I have to prepare myself. That's what I said, it has to start from the formation, the initial formation itself. There we need to give the knowledge of cultures. So therefore, a lot of discussions, interactions, examples of cultures and the growth in which we grow and so forth. Secondly, also inviting the missionaries, those who are working in other countries, try to call them to the formation houses,
try to ask them to share their experiences, both good and bad, how they overcame and so forth. As I told you, there was a person who things were completely robbed on the first day itself. But he had another bad experience after a few years, after 10, 15 years. You know, he was working in a parish and he was attacked with, you know, the knife and things like that. And then they also stole many things from his house. And then his legs were broken. His legs were really broken. He could not get a treatment. So he came to India and then he got a treatment and so forth. Now, still, when he was with us in our community, and then he was sharing his experiences, his good experience as well as bad experience. So one of them asked, so what do you think after getting the treatment, which place you will go and work in India? What was his answer? He said, no, after healing, I will go back to the same country and then work there. I will not remain in India. So therefore, you see, it has to, if only the person is really convinced, you have got good experience as well as bad experience, then you are very convinced and committed, certainly I will go to the country and work. Because people, we consider it is my mission country, that is my country. In our experiences, when we prepared the people for going to another country to work, after some times, you will see the language of the people itself will change. Instead of they say, it is our country. If he is going to Ecuador or he is going to Brazil or Bolivia to work, he will say, my country. They will say, what is your country? No, Bolivia. Bolivia is my country. So you see the language itself will change. So this all comes through formation. This all comes through formation. Once they are really formed well in a way from the beginning stage onwards, then you have opportunity to really insert and be prepared to work in another country with whatever may be difficulties. Every country, whether we work inside the country, outside the country, there are difficulties. We all know. There are risks, there are challenges, there are richness. But then we try to cope up with everything because of our missionary commitment. So that is why the formation is important. The second question is on agendas and intergendas. It is true, you know. Today in the missiological field, today we talk about intergendas, you know, intergendas. Just one book which I'm editing now, about in India, it is called Prospects and Pathways in India, Missio ad Intergentes. Ad Intergentes. Meaning to say, agendas is there, it is valued, it is respected, and then that is the church understanding. But at the same time, there is also intergentes. This is the way, the future, or this is the way of the present, I would say, even. That means, it is not when I say agendas, we prepare the missionaries for agendas. From Europe, or from our own countries, or even from Asian countries, agendas mission, you go to some other country to work. Yes, it is true, agendas mission. But then, when you go, we always go, yeah, I am a missionary, what I have to contribute, what I have to do, how I will change, how I will help the people, how I will serve the people. No, today we are changing this particular dialogue. It is not, I am not thinking how I will change, how I will serve, but then I'm trying to see when I go to the people, together with the people, we try to decide how we will serve each other. It is not only I am going to serve, but I also need to grow. So therefore, as a missionary, I try to learn from the people. I try to learn from the missionaries, from the people. So I try to see that intergentes aspect of it. It is together among the people. So if I am doing something, it is not because I have written a project I want to give you. No, actually today we call it, that is not a proper approach. Today, if I write a project, I write a project together with the people. Together with the people, I write a project. What they want and what we think, and then we try to discuss, discern, and see, okay, this is the project which we would like to execute. Then together we try to see where we can get funds, or how we can do, how we can organize, and so forth. So it is always intergentus mission today. Because in the intergentus mission, there is a respect, there is a value of sharing, and we try to see there is also God working in the people, among the people. It is not only because as a missionary that I have a discernment. No, people have got discernment. People have got richness. There is a presence of the Spirit among the people. They say before even I go to the country, there is already God's presence there. It is not I am going to teach them about God when I go to another country. No, there is already God's presence. Therefore, I try to see how God's presence in a particular culture, in a particular country, among the people, and my own God's experience, and then I try to see together how we can enrich one another. So that is what we call the intergentus mission. And intergentus mission we can see in many different perspectives, areas, and so forth. But it is very important today in today's context. We are not negating agendas, but in intergentus we include agendas, but then we value people, discuss people, discern together with the people, and continue our mission. That's what. Is it okay?
Thank you very much, Father. We are at the end of our time together. I have enjoyed this time immensely. I've learned a great deal. I'm very grateful for it. I'm very grateful to all of you who are here, whether you are here digitally or in person. I hope that you have enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. So don't forget to pick up one per community copy of the book. And more importantly, perhaps, don't forget to stop at the desk in the lobby to buy copies of Father's books. Thank you very much. And thank you to UISG and to our technical personnel, to our translator.
1 minute, can I say?
Father has one comment.
Actually, when I was preparing this particular talk, there were a lot of questions which had come to me. One of the questions was on inculturation and interculturality. I did not deal it here because that would take long time to deal, to first of all understand inculturation, then interculturality, and how they are merged together and so forth. That's why I did not go into those details, mainly concentrated on intercultural living. So.
And Patricia.
Spanish.
Well, I just wanted to tell you that there will be another meeting regarding interculturality only in Spanish on the 28th of January. It will be online. We will send you all the information, and the title will be Christ's Way Towards Interculturality, a challenge for community and personal conversion and its social impact. Sister Milmanda is one of the formators of the group that is going to form 200 sisters during the 2-week formation program that will take place here at UISG on interculturality from January until February, and that will be done in 4 languages. So please pray for this because it is a very important opportunity. So anyway, on the 28th of January at 2 p.m. Italian time, there will be the other talk in Spanish. Thank you.